the light streaming down into our life. That reminds me of a story about the Hebrews. And Alexander the Great, within our historical storyline of his story, conquered the world in a short period of time before he was 35. And one of those places he conquered was the land of Israel. And one of the things that allowed Alexander to do what he did was that he didn't go and destroy everything. He just had a great rep, like the pirate Roberts. So as soon as he showed up and put his armies right there in front of the kingdoms that he was about to conquer, he just sat there, and the guys sharpened up their blades and went and collected fruit and took it easy, rested up, and just stood there. Now, if that empire's king were to send out his army to attack Alexander, well, that would be the end of that army. So Alexander would just stay there, and then after a week or two, he would send an emissary saying, "Hey, why don't we? I'm going to set up a tent between my camp and your city, your empire, and I invite you to come by for lunch and let's talk." And so he did. And king would send an emissary to make sure things were cool, and they would do preliminaries. And Alex would say, "Listen, so I just want you to be part of my empire. I don't want to kill everyone. You're a prosperous place. I want to make you more prosperous. Look at all that money you're spending on that army. I'll protect you, right? I will leave a number of my best centurions to teach you and your army the best methods, how to use the technology, right? And then you'll have an even better army that you can go kick the asses of the small little people who give you a hard time. And I'm going to move on, but you will be part of my empire, right? And that goes along with all the trade with all of these other countries. No tariffs, no nothing, just free trade, right? And you won't have to pay for your army, right? And we can be great friends." And so the emissary would go back to the king. The king would come. They would talk. They would have dinner. They would dance with the dancing girls, and everything was great. And they'd shake hands, sign a contract, and then Alex and his aide-de-camp would come in. And he also, along in his aide-de-camp, they weren't all military guys. They were mostly scholars. So he would leave them a number of military folk to sharpen up their military, and he would leave them scholars, to get them on board with using Greek as their language, using the Greek economics, and to understand the Greek gods, right? And didn't force them to change their religion. He just brought the Greek gods to them. And after a while, people saw that there was more of a value in Alex's Greek gods, right? So this occurred to Israel, right? But the Israelites, they're a really testy bunch, and they tried to fight, and Alex just rolled right over them, took over their city, and took over, did the hardline thing, right? And then moved on, right? Leaving, a large army and all kick-ass people, and, the diplomats and scholars for when Israel was ready to bend. And they did, right? And they, did what the other things did, and then they became prosperous. But Alexander didn't give them as much freedom as the other guys, so he, forced them to take on the Greek gods, forced them to learn Greek, forced them to become a Greek city-state, basically. And so years went by, and Alex was moving on, and he would also marry into all the predominant families, right? And so he would have blood in all these places, his blood of children, right? Who would then become the leadership, right? I mean, this guy's a smart guy. So the Hebrew never really were happy about this, but they had to take it. Otherwise, they'd get wiped out. Because right at the point of him, Alex, about wiping them out, he stopped and said, "Okay, are you ready to make a deal?" And they were. So, because Hebrews do make deals. So, I'm looking at a deal they made with their God, So, after a number of years, and things were prosperous, and people were going for it, and there still was the core of the Hebrew who know. So Judah, who is in the long line of David, said, "Screw this," and went, into Jerusalem in a very nasty way and killed all the Greeks, and anybody who was Hebrew who was, didn't want to go back got killed too, and that's their God. That's the way their God rolls. It's through that kind of. There's the light again. Light is coming in and filling your heart with love, right? So anyway, Judah did this, and the Greeks came. Alex sent his best, stormtroopers to put this down and just take out everybody who wasn't going to go along, right? So it got really bad, and they were, kept from, when you're kept from eating and getting water, getting provisions from outside. So that happened, and it was getting pretty bad, and it was getting to be winter, and they really had nothing, and so the Jews, the Hebrews wanted, okay, God, listen, we did that for you, so you got to give us a hand here, So they lit a candle, right, in honor of their God, and they didn't do it in hiding. They did it so people who could walk by where they were would see the candle. Right. The next day they lit another and another, and that's the story of the menorah, of the candles, right? And that's what it's about. It's giving thanks and remembrance to God because God came and helped him out, right? And Alex said, and then very shortly after, he's in India getting reports, and he dies. He dies of a very superficial wound, and he gets an infection, and he dies. And he shouldn't have, because he's supposed to be, blood of immortals, right? And everyone thought so, because here's a guy who's not even 33 yet, and he's conquered the friggin' world and didn't destroy it, turned it into a business plan, right? And the Hebrews stepped up against that, and through a miracle of the light, right? And so that is what they celebrate in the winter. And pretty much every other religion celebrates this. Jesus really wasn't born in December. He wasn't Jesus was Jesus a Capricorn. No, he was born in, he's either, a Scorpio or an Aries, or a Tauran. One of those is my best bet for Jesus. And so, the Romans made all the Christian holidays, through their motif of their dynamic of the business plan of the Holy Roman Empire, and anyway, so that's almost 10 minutes of the story of the Hebrew celebration of light. Right? And here's light coming in right now. So I just wanted to tell you that story, and I'm doing pretty good, and it's really been, the last week has been amazing. It's been warm in the upper 60s during the day, and in the 50s at night. So I'm having no problem sleeping. And every third day it rains. Pretty hard, but not constant, but hard for about 10 minutes, and then misty, and then doesn't rain for an hour or two, and then it rains again. Because we're in a rainforest, and this place, even when it's sunny all the time, things are moist. Anyway, which is a good thing because the 19 doesn't like it moist. It likes it cold and dry, like a good white wine. So it's 11 minutes, and coming towards 11 seconds. And so I just wanted to touch base with you and tell you that I love you. And I don't even know, is anyone there other than AI? Can anyone send me a little chat here? Let's see. Oops. Okay, let's send that. See what it pops up. Yep, there it is. Well, okay, so we go from that to this.
Everyone, this is Dark Journalist with a very...
Come on. It's Dark Journalism, a very good website.
Special interview for you with former Assistant HUD Secretary Catherine Austin Fitts.
Catherine's great.
Latest Solari report outlines the dangers of the reset regime as they move forward.
That's what we're kind of experiencing.
Agenda that sees humanity as a resource to be harvested and is seeking to merge with AI robotics. Catherine tells us the technocrat takeover is here and is using every emergency to prevent the public from waking up to their plans. And those plans call for full spectrum dominance. Are we already at war with a globalist syndicate that's consolidating power on Earth and in space?
The Anunnaki.
Former Assistant HUD Secretary Catherine Austin Fitts, stopping the technocrat takeover.
So go check this guy out. He is quite the bomb. Dark Journalism.
Where was it? I read someplace within it. They had some general saying, we're going to have to wear masks 24/7, including indoors by ourselves.
Yes.
And I am just dying to know what the
rationale.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to make lists of all the different hypotheses of what the mask thing is about.
Yes.
And I really don't know what it is. And at this point, I'm ready to believe that their cloning doesn't work quite for the mouth.
Yes.
and they want to let loose lots of clones into the population. They can't do it unless everybody's covering their mouth. Well, this is so weird. It's one of my favorite. Every week on this Solari, we have a Solari Hero of the Week. And I don't know if you saw Tracy Clark and her colleague. They're OSHA consultants, and they're part of one of the Michigan groups. And what I realized listening to them is, well, of course, the people who you should go to for advice on masks are OSHA experts because they have, decades of science and laws and regulations. And basically what they're explaining is most of the mask mandates are in violation of OSHA laws and regulations.
Oh, wow.
It's not healthy to wear masks.
Yes.
And what you realize listening to them is, all these months you have all these OSHA experts who are scared to death to talk. And you realize how courageous they are for talking. But you realize how many people have been afraid and shut up. Because it's remarkable that they're mandating something which under OSHA regulations is deemed to be dangerous and not safe. And you would be, you could be prosecuted as an employer if you were to require it if you're placed under the OSHA laws and regulations.
Right, getting right down to it. Well, it's weird too that Biden, part of his trip was a mask mandate from the federal level, which is something that they never pushed Trump into. He was always against that.
Here's the thing, Biden's job is to destroy all independent producers, period.
All right.
Because that's how you do, if you can switch everybody from being an independent producer to getting a government check, then you've got them.
Right.
So their goal is to create mass dependency and shift to transhumanism and technocracy. And it's that simple. It's really that simple. It's that obvious.
It's interesting with Biden because all the people around him that are popping up, there's a lot of neocons, and they've been saying, endless wars was always a myth. We've done a lot of good in Afghanistan, built hospitals, and they've done this whole thing, and they're like rebranding the war effort after Trump wants to take it.
It's so nice to have a nice hospital as you're being slaughtered and liquidated. But To have your body go through a nice hospital.
So go to that contractor fees. We know in Vietnam they used to smuggle drugs through the bodies, and
Right.
they probably haven't stopped that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Stacking, that's what I love about the guys who run America. They are so good at stacking functions. They really taught me everything I ever knew about stacking functions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catherine, let's talk about Trump's policies putting China back in line and how the Biden neoliberal forces can't wait to get back in power and get that China gravy train of money going again for them. One of the reasons to get rid of Trump was the pushback on China.
It did push back on them, and that's why I think there's been a tremendous effort both by the Chinese and the globalists to do something about populism. And it's not Trump that they're after. They're out to kill the independent producer. They want total central control of all production and labor. And they want to integrate humans into the robotics labor force.
This is what Alexander
They
did.
would rather just give everybody an independent business, independent income, with money that they print. And so everybody has to sit down and shut up and do exactly what they say.
That was what the Romans called bread and circus.
People sort of owning the intellectual capital, the capital, and the operations to give them trouble. So we're watching the boot come down on independent economic ability.
The moves that, this is fascinating actually, because as soon as the election was over, of course it's not over, as we know it's really not over. But as soon as that started to happen, Trump's first moves post-election night were to fire the defense secretary, one, and to remove other people at Homeland Security and shift around people at the Pentagon, including elevating General Tata, who has been very well spoken about intelligence interference and military work. What's going on there?
So I don't know. I don't have the evidence of what has happened. But when I saw Esprit's response to Trump suggesting that we send in troops to deal with the riots.
Okay. So nobody's watching, and I hope you come back and watch this. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Here it is, going on 2 p.m. So I'm going to go enjoy it. And I just want to touch base with you and give you those two things. Remember, Dark Journalism, excellent channel. Jimmy Dore, excellent channel. These are all YouTubes. The Mind of Man. No, well, there's a video called The Mind of Man, done by this couple that is their media, I forget their name. And then there's Truly Grace, right? 4 channels, if you go check out, unbelievable, right? And if you go back to my buddy Cliff Hyde, his early back in January of this year, I mean, he laid it all out because he worked for DARPA. He was a computer programmer that wrote algorithms to make models, and bingo bango, there it was. So he tells, this 19 is a bio, it's a bio weapon, but it's a virus, so it's a lot more complicated. So, but he explains it very nicely. And back in January, he showed this graph of what was going to happen with the pandemic, and it's exactly what happened to the freaking day. Everyone, no, we're offline. Anyway, so I hope you, I won't say any more. But listen, guys, too. Go to, if you want to talk to me, go to my, hey, there's one more person. Have you been watching? No, they left. Go to the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And if you would like, and I would really appreciate, as many have done, put a little Christmas cheer into my PayPal. And I really, really, really want to say thank you to all of you who have done it, right? So how about some thumbs up for this show? And how about some more, I'm almost at 500 or maybe 400, who knows, cadre. And if I were ever to get to 1,000, then I could use my phone almost anywhere and do a show, which would be a liberating experience. So, and you'd love it too. So I'm thinking of new things to do for the new year of 2021. And 21 is going to make 20 look like nothing. 21 is going to be more rock'em sock'em robot, and you can even imagine they're playing when they say, this week we're supposed to have snow, so I never go